Well, it's come that time again for me to do what I do fucking best, and that is get pissed off. Now, normally with news stories like this, I like to do a bunch of them all at once, but this one is a special case because I'm probably going to do it. It requires special attention. Retired Supreme Court Justice Stevens, repeal the Second Amendment. Great. Let's give up our constitutional right to keep and bear arms for the protection of our life, liberty, and property from both bad guys and assorted criminals to maybe our own fucking government. You know, Stevens, you're kind of old, so you should remember Joseph Stalin and him, what he did to all his citizenry. Do you think he would have been able to pull that shit off if he was fucking armed? You know, there was 6 million people in Germany that didn't think their government would get as corrupt as it did. Now they're ashes. Retired Associate Supreme Court Judge. Okay, you're retired. Just fucking sit in your goddamn retirement home and fucking eat pudding, you fucking old bastard. Has an idea for addressing gun violence in America. Repeal the Second Amendment. How about just no? How about do you want a civil war? Now I know you're knocking on death's door and he's probably right behind you on the plane with a fucking looking at his fucking watch. But you try that shit, you're fucked. And again, you're a Supreme Court justice. How many guns protected you every single fucking day? But no, the unwashed masses, we must not be protected by guns. That is only for the noble senators, representatives, our king, the president, and, of course, the holy high judges on the Supreme Court. We don't live in that fucking society. We live in a society where everyone's fucking equal, old man. Okay, the 98 Supreme Court Justice advocates for stricter gun control legislation should take the next step and demand the removal of the Second Amendment entirely. Good fucking luck with that. A simple but dramatic action would move Saturday's marchers closer to their objective than any other possible reform. Well, of course their objective's that. The problem is most of these people are kids, so they don't really have any property or life, or I suppose they got liberty, to protect. Once they start getting those things, they're going to want to protect it, especially when other people's lives are in their hands. It would eliminate the only legal rule that protects sellers of firearms in the United States, unlike every other market in the world. Thank Christ we have that enshrined, and fuckfaces like you can't take away our right to guns. It would make school children safer. No, it wouldn't. What a big shock it would be if you do that. You repeal the second. We can't have guns anymore. And big shock, a school shooter will probably still walk in there with a gun. Honor the memories of the many victims of recent gun violence. Again, you will not stop gun violence. I mean, Chicago has some of the strictest gun control laws in the goddamn country, and they are one of the most violent cities on the fucking planet. So he retired at 90, and he probably went senile in the interim years. Had the op-ed published just after days of student survivors of recent mass shootings in Parkland, Florida, had the March for Our Goddamn Lives in D.C., and yes, I have my own criticisms of that. The March for Our Lives was nothing more than a ploy for gun control. Or actually, just a gun ban. You know, I'm sorry, Emma Gonzalez. I'm sorry you had to go through that. But your trauma doesn't trump my rights. Sorry, that's not the way it works. And it is kind of odd to see how innocent those kids are. Or, I honestly wonder what they would do if I said, "Here's a gun." I am actually curious of how many of these fucking kids have ever gone with their daddy And in Emma case, I'm pretty sure there's no dad in that family. But how many of these kids have actually gone through the process of legally obtaining a firearm? Because I can tell you from personal experience, you can't just walk into a store and buy a gun. You can't buy a gun online and have it delivered to your doorstep. The gun show loophole does not exist. Yes, there is the private selling, but how the fuck are you going to regulate what one private citizen, what they transact with another private citizen? So I'm sorry, but no, yeah, I'd love to know how many of these people at the March for Our Lives rally have actually purchased a firearm on their own, because it is a fucking process. I should know. I've done it. Rarely in my lifetime have I seen this type of civic engagement, school children and their supporters demonstrated in Washington. Doesn't change the fact that they're wrong. Most students and advocates pushing for gun control have not gone as far as to say the Second Amendment should be repealed entirely. Instead, gun control activists have pushed for the minimum age to buy a gun from 18 to 21. Odd that there may come a day where we send 18-year-olds to fire much bigger guns and fight for our rights and liberties in a war, but they can't have a beer and they can't have guns. I don't agree with when you get the right to vote, you should honestly get the right to have a beer and the right to buy a fucking gun. And honestly, I'm so one of the things I'm so sick of in this country is this 18-21 horse shit. Honestly, it should be one fucking age and you get everything. My personal thought would be 18. Even though I'm 36, so it wouldn't mean a damn thing to me. The implementation of more background checks and barring of civilians from owning oh my god. So it's a gun ban. That's what these fuckers at March for Our Lives want. You ban civilians from owning semi-automatic weapons. You have just made about 95% of the guns out there illegal. You've made all pistols illegal except for black powder and single shot, because every other pistol's semi-automatic. I mean, do these idiots know what semi-automatic actually means? Anyway, no, you ban semi-automatics, you've just taken about 95% of the guns out there. The only things left would be black powder, maybe, because you can make black powder semi-automatic, single shotguns, bolt-action rifles I don't exactly know about. That would be a gray area, because some people consider them semi-automatic. I don't. But they're in that gray area. Revolvers would be gone. 1911 style pistols would be gone. Every pistol would be gone. Every pistol is a fucking semi-automatic except for flintlocks or any single shot target pistol. So you want to bar civilians from owning semi-automatic weapons, then you've got a gun ban. And then, I hate to sound conspiracy theory, but you've caused a civil fucking war. You can take my guns out of my cold, dead hands. Hey, I hate to use that cliche line, but it's true. And again, we don't just need guns to protect our life, liberty, and property on the off chance that somebody's trying to break into our shit. It is also a deterrent from the government to not take too much of our power. Why do you think every tyrannical government, the first thing the fucker did when he started getting tyrannical, or governments that are just all powerful and control every aspect of their citizens' life, why is it that none of them will allow their citizenry guns? Also, England, a lot of countries in Europe have gun bans or very strict gun controls. Funny how they're having a spike in violent crime. Our violent crime rate is going down, is trending down. Their violent crime rate in several places in Europe is trending up. What a shock! The former Supreme Court Justice also cited the 2008 court ruling District of Columbia versus Heller, which affirmed the Second Amendment protects the right of an individual to own a firearm without serving in a militia. Stevens, along with retired Justice, citing Ruth Bader Ginsburg and dissented from the majority opinion. Yeah. Does this moron under fucking stand that our army is a militia? A militia is just a voluntary armed force. That is all a militia is. Our military is a militia. Because service is not compulsory. There is no law in the United States that says every male between at 18 has to serve a year or two in the military. There is no mandatory military service in this country, nor should there be. Our armed forces are strictly voluntary. Everybody in the military chose to go into the military, and that is the way it should be. So our army is a militia. Our armed forces are technically a militia. They're militiamen that have signed contracts, but they all voluntarily chose to serve in the military. Overturning that decision via a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment would be simple and would do more to weaken the NRA's ability to stymie legislative debate and block constructive gun control. Okay, you're never to repeal the second. You have to create a new amendment. It'd be the 30th. You're never going to get it. You're never going to get 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 2/3 of governors to sign off on it. That is not going to fucking happen. This jackass. Okay, I don't agree with him. I agree with the death penalty. I agree with him on. Well, no, I don't agree with him on the death penalty. We need the death penalty. I personally would attach it to more crimes. I agree with him on the legalization of marijuana. And I love he just wants to rewrite the Constitution. The right of the people to keep and bear arms when serving in the militia shall not be infringed. Do you know why it's wrote like that? The right of the people to keep and do you know why it's wrote a well-regulated militia necessary blah blah blah, and then there's the comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms? Because they just got done when they wrote this. The guys who wrote it just got done fighting a war with a tyrannical government that basically said to the colonists, "You have no right to your firearms. We will take them away from you." That's why it's wrote like that. It wasn't them fucking up and being drunk on the job. So fuck you. You take away the right of the people to arm themselves, and the militia will soon become tyrannical. Again, this is how you're 98 years old. You've lived through some of this shit, jerk off. How the fuck do you not know that's the end result? And it brings up the last thing is the worst amendment in American history, the prohibition on alcohol, mostly passed by the temperance movement, which was mostly women. So, yay, Women's History Month. Seriously, that I don't even think they had the right. I think they'd just gotten the right to vote, or didn't at the time. And yeah, without that, they got a fucking constitutional amendment to get rid of our fucking booze, which did nothing, by the way. Seriously, it did nothing. It didn't cut down drinking. In fact, drinking increased because you got the extra thrill of breaking the fucking law. And nobody gave a shit. Nobody was enforcing it. So, anyway, yeah, if we repeal the Second Amendment, then that's it. America is officially fucked.